Good evening and welcome to Just a Little Bit. Now, for those of you who have been watching us for a while and subscribing and sharing, we're going to do something a little different tonight. We're going to cut some segments and just spend a little time talking with perhaps our future. But I want to remind you that Just a Little Bit is brought to you in part by Destination Sistrunk, the Broward Cultural Division, and the Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Bureau. And also to let you know that Just a Little Bit is that, just a little bit of news from several black sources and throughout the African diaspora. Now, FAMU mourns the loss of a former Major League pitcher and a rattler by the name of Jim Mudcat Grant. Wow, Mr. Mudcat was 85 years old and he passed away in his home from La Cucha, Florida. So may you rest in peace, fellow rattler. This month we're celebrating Juneteenth. There was a Confederate general that 2 years and perhaps 3 months later, after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, that they went down to Texas to tell the enslaved Africans that they were free. Wow. Now, a lot of us have been led to believe that Juneteenth is a celebration that black people here in America were advised that they were free. It is now 2021 and I'm still searching for my freedom papers. However, we will celebrate Juneteenth on June 19th of this month with a lot of celebration throughout the state of Florida and throughout the country. To find different activities to participate in, check the pages of the Westside Gazette. Also in the news, mobilizing to find missing black children. We need your help. Throughout the series, which was in the pages of black newspapers across the country, began in 2019, a common theme emerged. Black children would go missing and receive far less media coverage and police priority than white children. Reportedly, there are 425,000 missing children in America and 40% are black. In a bit of strange news, Broward County, Florida officials have decided to honor Kodak Black with his own special day. Wow. I know we've done some things that would perhaps appear to be strange, and I would have to say that this rates as one of the stranger ones. Everybody need a chance though. We all can be redeemed. Welcome back to 40 on the 40. This is 40 seconds of the history, strength, faith, and perseverance of black people. And the person in this part of history is Maggie Lena Walker. 1867 to 1934. Maggie Walker was the first American woman bank president. She was the president of St. Luke's Penny Savings Bank. She served as the executive secretary treasurer of the Independent Order of St. Luke, an African American fraternal and cooperative insurance society, formerly the Grand Order of St. Luke. She was the founder and first president of the Richmond Council of Colored Women. She also co-founded the Richmond branch of the NAACP. She raised funds and served on the board of Jamie Porter Barrett's of Virginia School for Colored Girls. Right on, sister. Right on. Welcome back to Just a Little Bit. Now, this particular segment is a part I like. I get a chance to talk to young people and see where they are and what they're doing. Today, and this is going to blow you away, we have the honor of having on our show Mr. Raymond Adderley. Raymond is running for the Broward County School Board at large seat 8. Raymond is 17 years old. He's a senior in high school, but he's also a very articulate, knowledgeable young man. So let's welcome to the stage Mr. Raymond Adderley. Yeah, so Raymond, I don't know if to call you Raymond or Mr. Adderley. I'm so intrigued and moved by who you are as a person, and I know, you didn't just by happenstance become who you are. I have an upper hand on some of our listening audience because I read about you in the West Side Gazette, and I know that you had some tragedy in your life, You mind sharing a little bit of that with us?
Of course, because that's the beginning of my story. I find oftentimes that many people don't tell enough about themselves and relate to people. And that's the existence of my being and how I came to be. Well, first of all, I'm a lifelong Broward County resident. I grew up in the city of Miramar until I was 7 years old, where my story begins. My father, who was an entrepreneur, and was denied work by UPS because he had arthritis in his fingers, was an aspiring rapper. And I remember the night of December 14th, 2010, my mother, who's a teacher, was coming home with my entire family, so my 2 younger brothers and my father. And as we pulled up to our house in Miramar, there was a black car on the side of our house waiting for us. And as we walked into the door and began to collect our groceries, we were ambushed into our homes with guns to our head. And I remember that day I had learned about stranger danger, and so I was screaming, and the gunman turned to me and he said, "You better shut that boy up or we'll shoot him in here today." And as another armed man went into my mother and my father's room, and they were taking items, my dad tried to pull out his concealed weapon to protect his family. And my father's last words were, "Please, don't hurt my kids." And in that moment, my father was shot 3 times in front of me at 7, and my 2 younger brothers and my mother, who were all there at the same place. And so, honoring my father's last words, "Don't hurt my kids," I've set out to run for the Broward County School Board to do exactly the same thing, to ensure that every child in Broward County has a quality education with the best facilities, best access to mental health, the best teachers, but most importantly, to make sure that they remain safe. And that's what I'm doing.
Wow. I had to pause for a moment. Raymond, so many great people lives are began through tragedy, and then but the end is yet to see. So Raymond, what do you see is lacking, from the school board's position, or what could you bring to the school board that you don't see?
Well, first and foremost, what I bring that no other candidate does, or no other board member does, is what my team and I like to call the real experience. What it's like to actually walk in the hallway, what it's like to converse with students, what it's like to actually be impacted by the decisions that the board makes. And that is the experience that I bring to the board. That's the new thing that this campaign brings. But not only that, we bring energy. We revitalize and change the conversation. And the positions that sometimes the board takes comes out of a place of being out of touch. With one more voice on the board that's fresh out of our public schools, that can relate and talk to the issues that matter, be that mental health, gun violence prevention, safety in our schools, better facilities. I mean, what harm does it take for there to be 9 seats and to give 1 to a student that's a voting member? So right now I serve as the student advisor to the school board. I can advise the board. I can speak on any issue that comes before the board. But what am I lacking? I'm lacking the vote. So it doesn't matter, what I say at the end of the day, because the board can listen, but sometimes they don't listen. They hear what I say, but they don't act on what I say. And by winning this seat and running for this position, I have the unique opportunity in advocating for the issues that I care about, but the community cares about at large. But most importantly, Mr. Bobby, when I get to the school board, not only can I advocate, but I can vote and make the lasting change that impacts all of our communities.
To someone who may say, well, Mr. Adderley, you sound real good, but what do you know about numbers and situations like that? What could you how do you speak to that? How do you address that?
Well, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, we have a bond project right now in our district that is millions of dollars behind. In 2014, when 74% of Broward County residents voted to impact this bond project, it was an $800 million bond project. The problem was that the board did not plan on the front end for this bond project. They threw out a lofty number that thought that could renovate our schools, provide for better technology, provide for better facilities. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Because the truth of it is the board didn't realize how much money this project was going to cost until they actually started to plan and try to put that money to the issues. So right now, whereas the project was supposed to be completed this year, 8 years later, we are still 5 years behind. And that's a significant problem. We're $5 million over budget as far as spending. Every year, costs not only become more expensive because people are trying to have their businesses thrive and flourish, it's coming at the everyday expense of the everyday taxpayer. And so when property taxes continue to rise for the elderly citizen that's sitting in her home and wondering why she's paying $10 more than she paid the previous year, it's because the fact that we are having to expend more money to this project every year because of growing costs. I give you one good example. If we talk about a school here in our neighborhood, here in Sistrunk, where we are, we have Stranahan High School, the second oldest school in Broward County after Fort Lauderdale High School. They have a cafeteria that is over 100 years old. And in 2003, the cafeteria was pronounced 75% obsolescent. In 2018, it was pronounced 100% obsolescent. Well, let me just give you a little bit more background.
Okay. Go ahead, keep talking. I'm just, you got my attention.
A construction of a building that occurred in 1928. The cafeteria was remodeled in 1957. And the board was arguing at the last general school board meeting on whether or not they should add on for more seats, more capacity in the cafeteria to a building that's been deemed 100% obsolescence. So here's the issue with that. They were going to spend $11 million to add more seats to the cafeteria to provide for 700 or so seats in 15 months, instead of tearing down the cafeteria, rebuilding it, because Stranahan has a lot of open acreage, a lot of open land on its facility. Instead of, and at the cost of $17 million, that could have been done at the same time period of 15 months. We need to continue to make smart investments that don't come at tragedy. If we look at Rickards Middle School and the roof collapse that occurred there, if we look across the district, there are major disparities. You won't find the issues that I'm talking about here in Sistrunk and in Oakland Park, out west. And this campaign is not one that's seeking to alienize and demonize groups and other groups of students, but it's simply speaking truth to power and speaking about the issues. The people at Stranahan have been asking for a new cafeteria and a new school building since 2003. The board deflected and said because of the 2008 economic crisis, they couldn't get it done. Stranahan was the poster child of the bond project back in 2014. So, and then just one more number to prove that I know what I'm talking about. The pool renovation at Stranahan High School in 2014 cost $800,000. Today, that pool renovation costs $2 million.
Okay, now you are familiar with numbers, I must say. Now, Broward County, if I'm not mistaken, is it the sixth largest school district in the nation?
Sixth largest school district in the nation.
In terms of diversity,
Yes.
what is that about? I mean, the population.
Well, here in Broward, we also herald ourselves in having one of the most diverse student populations in the county. And that's just attributed to the fact that Broward County in itself is very diverse. I mean, if you go to the airport, often you hear Commissioner Holness and he giving his speech about how we have so many different languages, so many different people here in Broward County. And so because of that melting pot that we have here in Broward, people reproduce, they have kids, and that's the same thing that we have. So we have African American students, Jewish students, Hispanic speakers, Asian American students. We have Native Indian students. We have students from Brazil and students that speak Portuguese, Creole, French, Spanish. Such a diverse population. And so I think that is one thing that makes Broward County Broward County.
Okay, now there's been a lot of talk about what is it called? CRT?
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory, and there's no place for it in the classrooms. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, here's my thoughts on critical race theory, and I'm going to be as careful as I can without offending people. Actually, today during the board meeting, like I said, I serve as a student advisor. There were 3 people that addressed the board. 2 of them said they were congressional candidates, and 1 of them said that they were with a group. The group I don't remember. Misquoted the Bible, by the way, or misinterpreted a text, saying that putting our kids in masks is not only morally wrong, but it's biblically wrong. And he used a scripture from Mark, and saying that if we are to, what was the scripture? It was Mark 9:42, when Jesus said, if anyone is to cause a young child to stumble, then they should hang themselves off the bridge. And he misquoted that terribly. He had the Bible in his hand and made a mockery of the religion that so many people believe in. But to the issue, I hear when parents say that they don't want their children to be thought of as oppressed, because black people is a mighty group of people. We've had some of the most amazing feats. And what she said to me was, or to the board, she said, we need to teach our kids not about slavery, but how we had black pharaohs. But if I could have a conversation with that mother, I would very easily tell her, ma'am, they don't teach about black pharaohs right now. I would tell her, ma'am, slavery is a part of the history of African Americans. She also said in her remarks that we should be teaching our students about African American achievement. But we cannot talk about African American achievement without talking about the struggle to get there. But most importantly, the governor will tell you, and another gentleman at the school board meeting told you, that teaching critical race theory is anti-American. Well, I disagree wholeheartedly, because that is the most pro-American thing one can do. Because the most American thing one can do, President John F. Kennedy said it best: ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And here's the bottom line. We cannot expect children to change their communities if they do not know the gridlocks that hold them. And that is what critical race theory does. And in no way am I advocating to shove down students' throat a harsh reality. But if we fall in line with what the governor wants us to do, then those conversations won't be guided by teachers. They won't be held in the conversation in the classroom, but they will be taken to the streets. They'll be taken by violence. And so it's a collective effort that we have to take to ensure that every child in Broward County and across the state and across the nation understands how people have become to be, the cultures that coexist, how we commingle, but most importantly, how to speak truth to power. Because if you don't know that African Americans were slaves, or if you don't understand that African Americans in this country for a period of over 50 years were told that they had to come through the back door, then a white student that doesn't know many black people will never ever understand the fact or never ever understand their neighbor. And that is the most important thing. So I'll leave it there. I'm torn of a position on critical race theory because there are, as an African American, I don't want to be thought as oppressed. I want to be thought as I have overcome. And we have overcome as a people. I've overcome as a person. But I don't want every child to think that they are oppressed, but we have to ensure that people know where they come from. Actually, when we were sitting here getting ready for the set, you said something. And your comment was, how can you relate to other people if you don't know where you come from?
You know, and with that, Mr. Adderley, you came in with your posse, if you will, you know, and it's a diverse posse.
Yes.
You know, and I asked, one of the things that I asked was, how did this come about? How did you cross the lines? How were you able to step outside, you know, and create this synergy? With difference.
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I think it begins with having conversations with people, finding people where you can accept the differences that people have, and have those conversations. Well, first and foremost, talking about Puck and Rocco, we go way back. Mm-hmm. So I knew Rocco from debate, and as a novice debater, Rocco was one of my varsity teammates. And he was responsible for teaching me the ropes of this new event that I was doing, coming out of private school, going into public school. I knew nobody. And Rocco was just very kind to me. Mm-hmm. He taught me a lot about speech and debate and how to articulate and how to research. Funny enough, that exact same year, I called Xenia Santiago, who's the student liaison, and also serves as the person that oversees the operations of the Broward County Association of Student Councils. And I asked her, well, how could I become the student advisor to the school board as a freshman? And what was funny was that Puck, he had ran that year that I asked, and unfortunately he lost. But Puck's commitment to the students in this district, Puck's commitment to his ROTC unit, which I was also a part of, and we served together, him as the admin officer, me as the ops officer. Puck's commitment to every child in Broward County, his commitment to ensuring that every child was heard, it didn't die off with him. And so not only did he pass that torch to Rocco and made sure that Rocco got elected as the alternate student advisor, they teamed up with me to ensure that I got elected as the student advisor. But they too have the same realization that I do, which is simply that even though we're the student advisor, often at times we're limited to our comment. You know, I often get calls saying, Raymond, don't forget that you're not a school board member. If it's not talking about issues that relate students, then don't speak on it. Well, I say that every single issue that passes through any school board is a student issue. And if I have something to say, you bet I'm going to say it. And so that's how we came along. And so we came to the realization back in December that we would run for the school board to do the exact same thing. Speak for every child. Bring that energy. Most importantly, don't let that flame die, because it can easily die off with somebody like me. But this candidacy not only serves as one that wants to give sound bites and educates, it also wants to open a door for other young people after me. We have to collectively foster more people with passion. So it started with Puck, it went down to Rocco, now it's with me. So I have to make sure that I'm grooming the next person. I'm talking to the next person that's passionate about the issues to get the job done, carry the torch, and keep the flame burning.
You know, I listened to you when you and attentively when you said Puck and Rocco. You know, I thought I was in a Hollywood movie. You know, but to actually have a conversation with your posse, and I said to you, and I'll say it to everybody, we need to create our posses to be inclusive, to step outside of our comfort zone, and have a Rocco and a Puck, a person of the Tiberian.
He's Thai.
Thai and Panamanian. Yeah, these. I'm telling you, it's refreshing. So I need to have them on the show eventually, winding it down. But before we go, I am, of course, I'm older than you, and I've seen some things that you perhaps have thought about, So my question to you is, how will you do this? How will you, and I know you've touched about on your platform and all this, but what's the innermost thing that pushes you to want to do? I know you spoke about your father. I know that. I know that's very near and dear to you. But what is it, Raymond, that pushes you to the point that you know this is the right thing to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that leads me into my stump speech. And so here it is. No matter how many times that I say this, it gets more and more powerful each time. And that is, as a student and as the class president, when I came in and I succeeded another student as class president in 10th grade, I quickly became frustrated with students not being able to afford a $10 t-shirt that would come to their benefit in their senior year to make their prom, their grad bash, their senior activities cheaper. And as the class president, I was just like, man, what are these kids doing? They're stressing me out. But it's not until I really started to talk to people and open my eyes that I realized that there were major disparities in our district. And so the question that I would often ask myself when I was going through the whole thing with my father and that trauma and that tragedy was, Raymond, are you the only one going through this? And as I realized that I wasn't the only one, I began to ask myself, well, who's speaking for me? Who's talking about the fact that I lost my father? Who's talking about the fact that I'm fatherless and I'm moving home to home and I'm going from house to house? Who's talking about it? And from then, I realized and I said, well, Raymond, what are you doing to speak for people like you that are fatherless and going from home to home? And so it's every day that I step outside. It's with every conversation that I have with my team. It's with every time I talk to a donor that I think of this number, 270,000. There are 270,000 students in this district that need a voice and that is relying on somebody like me to parlay that voice. There's 31,000 teachers in this district that need someone to speak out and speak for them boldly, foster creativity in the classroom. Most importantly, to ensure that every teacher will never be afraid again to speak out at a board meeting in fear of retaliation. And lastly, this election is for every person that goes unheard. And I tell people all the time, it's humbling to speak for every child as the student advisor. But it's more humbling to speak for every unheard person, be that custodial workers, be that secretaries and clerks like Puck, be that janitors, be that bus drivers that sleep in their cars because they don't make enough. Every person collectively that makes education run around day in and day out, there is room for you, not only in my heart, and in my soul, but that's the gas that keeps me running. That's the fire that never dies. And so I say all the time, my campaign slogan is Raymond Takes Notes, because it implies that I listen and I record. But most importantly, this campaign, this movement is for every child.
Oh. Well, do we applaud now? What do we do? Yeah. You know, Raymond, again, man, I want to thank you. How can a person contribute to your campaign?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. That's a very important question. Our message doesn't go out for free. So right now, I will ask that to all the viewers out there watching, and to everyone who's going to see this, well, first of all, you can go to RaymondAdderley.com or RaymondTakesNotes.com. They all go to the same thing. But you can go to my website, read my story, read my take on the issues. You can go to donate. I encourage everybody right now to donate $25. $25, it's a small amount, but don't limit yourself to $25. You can give a lot more than $25. You can give anywhere up from $0 to $1,000 in this local election. And if you can only give $25, that's okay. If you want to give more in the future, you can give $25 recurringly. But right now, $25 is what we're asking for. Go to RaymondAdderley.com, and I hope to engage with you more there.
Okay. Again, Raymond, if somebody wants to volunteer,
RaymondAdderley.com, and go to get involved on our dashboard.
Okay. And young folk, and I'll call out some names: Haley, Janaya, Samara, Layla. Those, if you're interested in really stepping up, so give Raymond, reach out to him and see how you can help him. I know that he's 17 years old, but his heart speaks volumes to what he can be. So I want to thank you, and God bless you. Critical race theory is a portal to understanding what Black America is. And the subtitle to that is Celebrate Juneteenth with the knowledge of what we went through to be who we are. Some may try to make it difficult and create falsehoods for us to celebrate our glorious history. However, because of its richness, it's impossible to overlook what Black people have created, achieved, and overcame in this country. What is Juneteenth? And what are the probabilities of one not to celebrate what some acknowledge to be a day of freedom and independence for the darker America? The holiday received its name by combining June and 19. On June 19, 1865, months after General Robert E. Lee, the Confederate officer, surrendered at Appomattox, Virginia, a Union General, Gordon Granger, arrived in Galveston, Texas, to notify the enslaved Africans of their freedom and that the Civil War had ended. 2.5 years earlier, on January the 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation. If we were to live a life focused on being the dark of America, some of us would perhaps succumb to the illusion and perception of what it is to be in the dark. To a blind person, the dark is a way of life. They learn to live and accomplish their dreams and ambitions in the darkness. And here we are, groping around in broad daylight because we don't have the eyes to even see ourselves, to take it just a little bit further, to see the worth of who we are as a people. We have been blinded by the worst of people. They would go as far as to say what we went through, what we accomplished, what we created, we did not really create it, and that our lives weren't that bad. All that was done to create America was done entirely by them, with no hate, no remorse, no justice, and yet they don't want us or anybody else to tell the truth concerning the beauty of us and the brutal honesty of the ugliness of what America did to us. America does not exist without her 4th of July, and Juneteenth will go on life support without the truth of critical race theory being injected into veins of this, the living America. Just a Little Bit is brought to you in part by Destination Sistrunk, Broward County Culture Division, and Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Bureau. Destination Sistrunk is a door to explore Black history and heritage in Greater Fort Lauderdale. For more information, please visit www.destinationsistrunk.com. And remember, it's all good in the hood.